It's the first official regular season Blue Friday of the 2023 season. We discuss the injury situation, including a possible shakeup in the running back room. It's all here next on Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12s. You're listening to Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This is your host for today's show, Nick Lee, filling in for Corbin as he battles the plague or the blob or whatever was in his hotel room. I got my trusty sidekick here, Dallas Cooper. Corbin is coming up off the bench today as well, so a little bit of a role reversal, but thanks to the 12s everywhere for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week, whether you're listening in from Santa Fe, New Mexico, where I'm currently holed up at, or beautiful Hilton Head, South Carolina. We thank you. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. And now for your lead story here on Locked On Seahawks. First, we've made it, y'all. We've made it. I don't know if we need to do to throw confetti, blow a party favor. It is Blue Friday before a regular season game. It is here. The Seahawks last played a regular season game 236 days ago, and now we are here just a few, short 48 hours or so away from the Seahawks and Rams meeting up at Lumen Field. And as our normal regular season schedule, if you're a normal listener, you know that we talk injuries on Friday, of course, leading up to the game. And Dallas and I and Corbin will give our keys to victory later on and our picks to click. But let's start with injuries. And Dallas, we'll go to you first. So earlier this week, the Seahawks got some good news, some positive news with Jackson Smith-Njigba and Darrell Taylor now set to play on Sunday after being banged up for most of the preseason, both of them being full participants in practice. But there is a few concerning developments now in the injury room, especially when it comes to running back.
Yes, I'm really worried right now about Kenny McIntosh, especially him, because early on it felt like he was developing at a rapid pace, especially with the camp footage that we were seeing. Him being out is just continuously going to hinder his progression. It's going to take longer to get him within the offense. And Ken Walker being limited with a groin injury, man, these groin injuries are really tough because these are injuries that he could be back as little as this week. But then this thing could really hamper him for the next 3 to 4 weeks. Groin injuries are really tough and they're really confusing. You don't want to rush him back, especially because these are injuries that tend to get re-injured when they are rushed back. It's a lot. It tends to happen a lot. And just Ken Walker, the explosiveness that he provides, it's a different Seahawks offense when Ken Walker gets going. You can feel it. It brings a different type of hype to the offense, and everyone feeds off of that. And they're going to miss that if he's not available in week 1.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it does kind of shake up things, and you naturally turn to, all right, Zach Charbonnet ready for perhaps RB1 status, and with Ken Walker, he hasn't been ruled out, so maybe we shouldn't quite go that far. But for me, it was kind of a sense of here we go again with the running backs and injuries. So he's obviously, I think, one of the bigger concerns. And Corbin, I'll turn to you. What is something that jumps off the page here as you look at this latest injury report?
Well, one thing, Nick, is that I would say don't hit the panic button on Ken Walker III, because the Seahawks are always going to keep their lead running back in bubble wrap. That's just the way that they handle things. And if he felt even the slightest tweak, they are going to limit him. They are not going to risk having him miss Sunday's game. I would be stunned if he's not playing, but we don't know all the details. Maybe something else happened. Maybe he did re-aggravate that. So that is something we will find out later today from Pete Carroll when the reporters are speaking with him at the facility. But for now, I would ease caution there as far as hitting any panic buttons. I still expect that he's going to be ready to go. But the Damien Lewis inclusion with the shoulder issue is the one that immediately jumped out to me. Now, maybe this was another one of those, hey, it's a one-day thing. We just wanted to give him some rest. But This is Aaron Donald week. You need your interior offensive line to be full strength. And if you have to play Anthony Bradford, the rookie out of LSU, in his first pro game, hey, Anthony, congratulations. You get to deal with number 99. You can't tell me the Rams would not be trying to take advantage of that. They would purposely have Aaron Donald against him, and maybe the rookie would step up to the plate, but that would be a hell of an ask to ask your fourth-round pick in his first NFL game when he's not even starting initially, to ask him to take on Aaron Donald in week one. That would be a big deal. And again, I don't want to rush to conclusions here because this very easily could just be, hey, it was a one-day thing. He had a small little bruise or tweak or whatever. He's ready to go. We don't think this is going to be significant, but that is the one that jumped out to me. I would anticipate Boye Mafe is going to be fine. They have guys that sit out with illnesses fairly frequently, and then they're back. So I would anticipate he's going to be ready. But the Lewis injury is the one that jumped out to me as far as ones that weren't on the list on Wednesday. Then I'm like, wait a second. You got to be all hands on deck with that interior offensive line.
You make a good point there. Aaron Donald week is never an easy week for the Seahawks, especially with the recent struggles they've had along the interior. Just for those who maybe aren't watching on YouTube or aren't in front of the screen, you're driving or listening to this, just a quick run through of this injury report we have in front of us. Those outs, as far as practice on Thursday, Kenny McIntosh, Jordan Brooks. Jordan Brooks was more of a rest issue, thing. He should be good to go. Boye Mafe, like Corbin mentioned, now with an illness. Jamal Adams with the knee, very likely that he misses week one. Damien Lewis, the new addition to outs. Then limited is Derek Hall with the shoulder, Ken Walker, as we mentioned, and Devin Witherspoon continues to be limited, and his status for week one very much in the air. And then full practice participant Cody Thompson's been moved, Darrell Taylor, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. And another positive development as well, and I'll turn to Dallas here and Mike Morrison. What is this, what are some positives that you're taking away from these last couple of days of injury reports? And that includes Mike Morris perhaps, making a surge here late.
Oh, Mike Morris. He's the guy that the Seahawks drafted as being just a physical specimen along the interior defensive line. He's a guy that's going to be ideally playing a lot of 3-tech, and that's what he talked about in the pressers, especially coming out of the draft. And it seems like Clint Hurt's been getting him on that throughout camp. Getting him back is going to be integral to stop Cam Akers, and especially in week one. Go back to his versatility, played snaps at edge. If you needed him in a pinch to be a big edge rusher to stop the run, he can do that as well. This is integral for the Seahawks run defense. Mike Morris being back is great for the defense.
Yeah, it adds to the depth, of course. And coming up next, we're going to give our offensive and defensive keys to victory ahead of the opening game against the Rams. Don't go anywhere. This is the Locked On Seahawks, the Blue Friday edition. Don't go anywhere. Men think losing their hair is inevitable. You don't have to choose between better hair growth and your health. Nutrafol provides a whole body health approach for men that promotes healthier hair, no drugs, no compromises, just better hair. Did you know that 80% of men will experience hair thinning in their lifetime? It's normal, but it doesn't have to be your fate. You can get ahead of thinning with Nutrafol. Take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month's subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men, and enter promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Thanks for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen every day. The Locked On Ultimate NFL season preview is here. The 7-episode extravaganza brings opinions, analysis, and plenty of debate from all 32 of our Locked On NFL hosts with added insights from our national experts. It's a can't-miss series before the season kicks off. Catch every episode on Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back. This is Nick Lee being the host today. A little bit of a role reversal. Corbin is still with us coming off the bench, and, of course, our trusty sidekick, Dallas Cooper, as well. So let's talk the keys to victory now, fellas. And Dallas, I'll dish it to you first. And, of course, this is the Rams, but we also understand this is a bit of a different Rams, looking team than the last few years. They're not quite the big boy on the block as they were, but, they still deserve respect. So Dallas, let's start on offense. Where are you going for a possible key to victory against the Rams on Sunday?
take advantage of that young secondary. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, I'm expecting at minimum 75 yards apiece out of them. Geno Smith should have a field day. In terms of combined games played from their base defense, they have 74 combined games throughout that whole defensive backfield. DK Metcalf himself has played 66 games, and then you combine Tyler Lockett into that, they more than double the entire Rams secondary in terms of games played. That's what the keys to victory to me is. Take advantage of that young secondary. As you said, Nick, this is not the big dog on the block anymore. This is someone you can take advantage of, and you need to take advantage of. Geno Smith should have a field day with this defense.
I like it. I like your optimism, and I think where that starts, I'm going to go with mine, is avoiding the turnover bug. And like we said, this is not the same Rams team. You don't need to play a perfect game to beat the Rams, like maybe you felt like in the last couple of years, the last 4 or 5 years. You don't need to play that kind of game. Be smart with the ball. Be mindful of not putting the ball in harm's way. Seahawks had 25 turnovers, were the second most of the Pete Carroll era last year. Rams were middle of the pack in turnovers created at 17th last year. So I'm going to go one or zero. No more than one turnover. They don't have to play a perfect game. There is room for a little bit of error there, and the Seahawks have shown they can overcome that. So it's not like where you're playing on the road against the best team in the NFL where you can afford zero turnovers. I think there's a little room there, but you don't want to let things get out of control. You don't want to give them any momentum. You especially don't want to let them hang around late. So I'm going to go, avoid the turnover bug, 1 or 0 turnovers on offense. And so, Corbin, I'll turn it to you. Where is your key to victory here against the Rams?
It's fitting that yesterday at practice and after practice that one of the big talking points, whether you were talking to Geno Smith, Tyler Lockett, or Shane Waldron, how much of an emphasis the Seahawks have put on third down and red zone performance. In this particular game, it is all about inside the 20s for the Seahawks. You look back at the game that they had in Week 18 last year. Yes, Seattle won that game, but they were 0 for 4 in their 4 trips in the red zone, turning any of those drives into touchdowns. They all were field goals or no points. You cannot do that against a team that is an underdog. You are opening the door for them to be able to stay in the game. If Seattle finds a way to get inside the 20s, the Rams were actually the best team in the NFL last year in red zone defense in terms of limiting touchdowns, 44.4%, first in the NFL. And that was without Aaron Donald the last 6 games. But they don't have Bobby Wagner anymore. Bobby Wagner's going to be in the other uniform. Jalen Ramsey's gone. Jalen Ramsey was a tough red zone player as well. So they have a lot of new pieces there. When you get the ball in the red zone, you got to find a way to capitalize. You got to punch it in, especially in the run game. Guys, the Seahawks had 1 rushing touchdown last year inside the 5-yard line. 1. And Ken Walker III had 9 carries for -3 yards in those situations. You have got to be able to finish drives with the run game. And so I think it is crucial, particularly that run game. You get down into the lower red zone, you have to finish and put 6 points on the board, not 3s or 0s.
Oh, that stat made my stomach turn. That is pretty much right. I'm sure that makes Pete Carroll's stomach turn or worse. Makes him nauseous.
If you saw Shane Waldron in the press conference when we were there, I mean, Shane Waldron kind of looked like, whoa, wait a second. But that's the stat. They had 1 rushing touchdown inside the 5-yard line last year as a team.
Oof, yeah, they need to take a book or a page out of maybe the Eagles book and get some guys pushing up there in the line or something like that. Let's flip to the defensive side for the Seahawks, and of course, this is the more maligned side of the ball last year, more subject to scrutiny, which deservedly so. And we are the Seahawks are facing the Sean McVay Rams again. Not the same. They don't quite have the same razor sharp teeth that they used to, especially with Sans Cooper Cup. I think is the biggest one there. So I'm going to give mine here. So my first one, it's really easy to say, oh yeah, got to get a pass rush. I mean, any team can really say that. I'm going to go where the Seahawks need to show the most improvement this year along any part of the defense for me, and I think we all can agree, the interior defensive line. And the Steve Avila is a rookie left guard. It will start it for the Rams. They don't have any world beaters in either guard or center position. This is where Seattle should show that they're improved along the defensive interior. You got Jaron Reed at nose, Mario Edwards, Dermott Jones on each side of him. Get pressure from the inside. That's not just pass rushing, stuffing Cam Akers, making the Rams one-dimensional, and they don't have their, they can be one-dimensional. It's okay to be one-dimensional when you have Cooper Kupp on the other end of the ball, but it won't. So getting them in uncomfortable situations, and Seattle can completely disrupt what Sean McVay wants to do on offense with the Rams if they get disruption from the interior, because really, frankly, that's not where they're expecting the pressure to be coming from a Seahawks defense right now. So Dallas, I'll flip it to you now. So I say interior defensive line disruption. Where are you going for your defensive key to victory?
I have to go to the second level right behind them. Wagner, Bush, and Brooks. Wagner now being in the opposite uniform, as Corbin said, is going to be very interesting. It's kind of like a coming home for him, where he now gets to go against the team that he took that 1-year deal for, and he can use that knowledge that he learned in that limited time back for the Seahawks. But these linebackers need to make plays consistently. Last season, everyone knows there was times where linebackers were out of the gaps and they weren't in the right run fit, and they were getting just blown off their ball. It was crazy. It was just linemen were getting to the linebackers last season, and then you were seeing linebackers 8 yards down the field. Bobby Wagner should immediately change that. Bush and Brooks are going to need to step up, specifically Bush, especially if they're going to be a little careful with Brooks. And to your point, Nick, Draymond Jones is going to have to be a key piece into what you were saying. John Snyder made a completely 180 move that he really hasn't done this entire time with Seattle. And he signed a big money free agent early in free agency with Draymond Jones. To your point, this needs to be a game where they need to prove it.
Absolutely. You got to prove that investment was worth it. And Corbin, let's flip it to you now on defense. Where do you see is the crucial part of this defense for the victory against the Rams?
Pardon my French, but set the damn edge. I have watched this happen year after year after year since Sean McVay has been here, and it almost drives me as a football analyst more crazy than watching Aaron Donald get 4,000 sacks on the quarterback, because at least in that case, hey, Aaron Donald does this to everybody. Aaron Donald is a generational talent, but the Rams have had guys like Brandon Powell, who's no longer there, by the way. He left in free agency, so maybe that's the difference. But it feels like they have been able to plug anybody in. They don't have to have an elite receiver or running back that runs those jet sweeps, and they have just murdered the Seahawks with those plays. Seattle's edge guys have not been able to set the edge. The outside linebackers haven't been able to come up and make plays. And so you have to be able to shut that down. You know that Sean McVay's got those in his back pocket going into every one of these Seahawks matchups. He always seems to find the perfect time to use them. And on the outside runs, particularly the outside zone, I expect to see a lot more midline and outside zone with Mike LaFleur as the offensive coordinator coming from Kyle Shanahan's system. They're going to move away from all that duo that they ran last year. You've got to be able to set that edge, contain, and force the running back inside to your playmakers, Bobby Wagner, Jordan Brooks, Devin Bush, if he's in the game, your safeties. Force them back inside. Don't let them get outside where they can do a bunch of damage outside the hash. And so to me, that is the key here. It isn't just the jet sweeps. I want to see contain, set a firm edge. Hopefully, Boye Mafe is going to be playing a lot of snaps, because that was the one bright spot against the Rams last year that handled that duty well. They, as a team, though, cannot let those plays beat them as they have done in the past.
Gee, Corbin, I wish you would just speak more passionately about this. I can tell it's been a bugaboo for the Seahawks for a long time in a Sean McVay Rams-led offense, and this feels like a year where that can be the script can be flipped a little bit with the additions the Seahawks have made, some of the changes, and as to personnel. And I'd like to think that all three of our keys kind of bleed into one another. You get the pressure from the interior. That's going to automatically, help the run game on defense in the second level. That should help bottle up this team from bouncing things and cutting back and creating those huge holes. So when we come back after this break, we're going to talk about some picks to click on offense and defense ahead of this game. And then it's going to be the weekend, and we're going to have to wait for kickoff on Sunday. Don't go anywhere. This is the Locked On Seahawks podcast, part of your Locked On Podcast Network. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Prize Picks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. This week on Prize Picks, I'm selecting DK Metcalf for more than 50 yards receiving and Derrick Henry for 75 or more rushing yards. Prize Picks is an absolute blast each week, and it's an easy way to enjoy daily fantasy without any hassle and land quick winnings. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Thank you for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen every day. Everydayers will be diving Monday, in fact, after the game, or after that, we'll have a post-game show, and Corbin will be leading that. And of course, we'll talk about the first game that has concluded for the Seahawks. It's exciting that we're finally talking about real football that counts, not fake football that's August. And we're gonna be diving real hard into it, which is really exciting. And first and foremost here, we're gonna talk about Picks to Click. And welcome once again. I'm Nick Lee, your lead host today, giving Corbin a bit of a breather as he battles whatever Ghostbuster thing is in his hotel room, whatever sludge is in there. And of course, Dallas as well, ever ready at the beck and call. We appreciate him as well. So, gentlemen, let's get to it. Our Picks to Click on offense and defense heading into this game against the Rams on Sunday at Lumen Field. It's finally here. Regular season. Let's go. I'm going to do mine first. My Pick to Click on offense, with some concerns with Ken Walker. I know we haven't said, Corbin was quick to iterate that he's not been ruled out. Ken Walker still can play and maybe should still play and still be expected to play. Even if he does, there perhaps might be a bit of a pitch count with some of that injury. And the Seahawks also have a bevy of running backs that they can rely on still, even with Kenny McIntosh also dinged up. I'm going to go Zach Charbonnet. Yes, I'm picking a rookie in his NFL debut as a Pick to Click. I know it's a bit of maybe a hot take or a bit off the cuff, but as I said, Walker's banged up, so he might not get that full bell cow workload. And Charbonnet has shown why he's been a second-round pick in the preseason. The Rams don't have that stout run defense they used to, or at least we assume they won't. This is a great chance for Zach Charbonnet to announce his presence, and it doesn't need to go off for 120 yards, even if he is the starting running back and Ken Walker, the third, God forbid, doesn't play. I don't expect him to have this all-world game, but I did like what I saw from him in the preseason with some chunk plays, and you want to see those cutbacks, that vision, that patience, getting some chunk gains, moving the chains, those kind of things. He has that ability right out of the gate in his NFL debut. So I'm going to go Zach Charbonnet for my Pick to Clicks. Now let's go to Dallas here. Dallas, who's your Pick to Click here in this game against the Rams?
Geno Smith. I'm going to go with the man at the helm. He's going to have the advantage of having Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. I spoke to it earlier against this really inexperienced secondary. I fully expect Shane Waldron, Geno Smith, heck, even Zach Charbonnet, as you said, they're all going to take advantage of this Rams defense, which is largely unproven around Aaron Donald. This is going to be a new interesting season, and I expect Geno Smith to have just as good of a season as he had last season. He's going to start it off with a bang.
Going with the quarterback. I respect that. And Geno Smith probably very anxious to prove that last year was not a fluke. And so, Corbin, let's go to you. Who do you have as a Pick to Click in this opening game?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the, I guess you could say, not so sexy selection here. I mean, it'd be easy for me to go with a running back or a wide receiver or a tight end or a quarterback, but I'm going to go with the right guard, Phil Haynes. I think this is your opportunity, Phil Haynes, to come in. You're going against the best in the business in Aaron Donald. And by the way, in the past, he's actually played fairly decent against him when he's had his opportunities. So I just think Phil Haynes, he might be the real X factor of this offensive line, not the center. Evan Brown, if he ends up being a major upgrade, that's big news for the Seahawks. But I thought that Gabe Jackson was arguably their weakest link from the beginning to the end of the season last year because of his knee. He just wasn't the same player. I am excited to see what Phil Haynes can do with this first opportunity to be a starter, a full-time starter for the Seahawks. And what better way to start things off than play well against Aaron Donald? He's going to lose some matchup. Every guard does against Aaron Donald, but I'm just excited to see what an athletic, really strong guy like Phil Haynes is able to do here.
That is such a great Corbin Smith pick for pick to click. A guard. I love it. Let's go to the defensive side. As we've discussed, our keys to victory, and my pick to click kind of bleeds into what my key to victory was disruption along the interior line. My pick to click is Jarran Reed. And this would have sounded weird a few months ago, but he had a solid showing in his brief time in the preseason. He only had 5 pass rushing snaps in the preseason and got a sack. So I like those percentages. If he can keep that percentage, with 20 or 30 pass rushing snaps, that's a pretty good trajectory. I kid. I know that's pretty much impossible, but I did like what I saw from that brief time he had, where he's sliding over onto more in the interior, nose tackle, some A gap, B gap, swapping back and forth. But I do like that they're trying to find the best way to use his skill set. I am optimistic about this, second stint he has in Seattle, and Reed needs to set the tone early in this game and in this season. That this is going to be a different Seahawks defensive line, especially along the interior against the run and especially against the pass, because as we saw in the Super Bowl with the Eagles and the Chiefs, even just throughout the playoffs, just the invaluable thing of having a disruptive defensive line where you can just sit back in your base defense and let your big dogs up front eat, and that's enough. You don't need to blitz. You don't need to do anything crazy. You just got those guys along the line doing it for you. That is the beautiful symphony sheet of music for defense. So I'm hoping that starts with Jarran Reed in the middle. So that'll be my pick to click. So Dallas, who do you got on defense?
On defense, I'm going to go off of what you said and kind of use my keys to victory to kind of bleed into this. And Bobby Wagner is my pick to click. Excuse me. I am expecting him to be in the mix for everything. He has the knowledge. He played for the Rams just last season. Had to practice against that coaching staff, against those players a lot. And now he comes in back to Seattle. Going to your point, if Jarran Reed in that interior line does a great job, Bobby Wagner can rack up a lot of tackles against this Rams defense, especially if they're trying to run the ball a lot. And that's what I expect them to do. So Bobby Wagner, to me, is going to be my pick to click.
I like it. And Corbin, let's go to you now. Let's see who you got on the defensive side.
So we've had a defensive lineman. We have had a linebacker. Let's get some safety action here. And I'm going to surprise people because, it'd be easy to go Quandre Diggs because of the success he has had against Matthew Stafford, his friend, his former teammate. He picked him twice a couple years ago. But I am feeling some love today. Julian Love is my pick to be the pick to click. And one of the newcomers that I think he's kind of gone under the radar because everybody's waiting for Jamal Adams to come back. But this guy is such an intelligent football player. You can blitz him. He can play in the box. He can play the 2 deep. He can play single high safety. It lets you do some fun stuff with Quandre Diggs, moving him a little bit around, unlike what they've done in the past. So I'm just really excited to see what he can do in this game. And this feels like one of those games, especially without Cooper Kupp, that I think Matthew Stafford, there are going to be a few throws in there where he's really going to try to take advantage of that arm strength. And I just have a feeling that Julian Love is going to jump one of those throws. And I'm making the prediction right now. I think Julian Love gets an interception of Matthew Stafford in this football game. So he is my pick to click.
Ooh, spicy. I like it. Just like the New Mexican cuisine I've had the last couple of days. Anyway, so let's round table real quick with some predictions. Of course, everyone loves predictions. Everyone loves making fun of you when they're super wrong. And you don't hear anything when you're right because no one cares. So let's get to it. So I'll go with mine. And just looking at last year's Rams, it's last year's Rams Seahawks games. You always know these do end up kind of devolving into slugfests, even no matter how good or bad either of these two teams are. More often than not, they've been slugfests. Well, I think the average score between the two teams for the two games last year was something around like 23-19 or something like that. Like that was the average score of the two games. So I'm expecting something similar. I do think the Seahawks have a bit more of an advantage on offense. I don't expect this to be some sort of crazy shootout. So I'm going to go Seahawks win. I'm going to say they win 28-20. They win, maybe it's 28-13 and the Rams get a late score. I do think the Seahawks will maintain control of this game. Hopefully with that offensive line, get that running game going, all those nice things. So I'm going to go Seahawks win 28-20. So putting you on the spot, Dallas, who do you got? Perhaps a score prediction for Sunday.
I got 31-23 Seattle. And the reason being is kind of going to what I was saying. I think Geno Smith, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, they're set up for a big day. And I really expect them to come out the gate swinging and kind of jump off of what they did last year and fully evolve in what they could be. And we have Jackson Smith-Njigba back at full health, excuse me. This is going to be a fun game to watch. I'm really interested in this pass offense, and I think they can put up a lot of it.
All right, another 8-point victory. I like it. So Corbin, are you going to go with another 8-point victory and keep it going, or where are you going to go? You're going to go off the board. What do you got for this game?
Well, it's a 5.5-point spread, and my heart is telling me that it's going to be more than that 5.5, just as you guys said. But my brain, I can't compute that when these two teams get together. They, as you mentioned, Nick, they have slugfest. Aaron Donald by himself being back in the lineup, I think that creates some complications up there for the Seahawks. I don't know that they're going to be able to put 30-plus points on the board. Even though the Rams have a lot of new pieces, a lot of uncertainty on this defense, they've still got Aaron Donald. They've still got a few playmakers. I actually think they've got a few intriguing players in their secondary. They might be young and inexperienced, but there's some potential back there. And a few of those guys played well against the Seahawks in those 2 losses they had last year that were tight. So I think Seattle wins this game, but I'm going to go on the lower end scoring end of the spectrum. I'm going to go 24-20, and I think they're just under that 5.5-point spread. I think it is going to be a back and forth game, and I think there's going to be some miscues for both teams too, because it's week 1 and it's a Rams-Seahawks game. There's always weird things that happen. So I'm going to go 24-20. I think the Seahawks get the win, but I do not think it's going to be easy, and I've said it all off season. I think the Rams are going to be a team that maybe they don't make the playoffs, but I think they're going to be a lot more respectable than most of these experts are trying to let on. So I expect this to be a very competitive, close game.
Yeah, I think we all agree that this Rams team shouldn't be disrespected. Even they've lost some pieces. They're still in kind of salary cap hell from selling out for the Super Bowl, which that's one way to skin a cat, I guess. So that's well, let's not get it twisted. This is still the LA Rams. This is still Sean McVay. This team will fight, and Aaron Donald, like by himself, he is the game wrecker of all game wreckers. Game wreckers wish they were Aaron Donald. So he by himself can certainly disrupt things. So yeah, this won't be easy. This will definitely be earned by the Seahawks, but I do think they have the playmakers and the guys up front to earn this victory, and I think we all three agree there. You can follow me on Twitter at Thankley51. Follow Dallas at Dallas C. Cooper. Corbin at Corbin Smith NFL. Thank you so much for listening. And of course, here we are for the weekend. Enjoy the first Seahawks regular season game of the 2023 season. It is finally here. Pull it up Red Zone, get all the chips and dip, anything you want. This is going to be a fantastic weekend of football, not just Seahawks, but all around the league. I hope you enjoy it. Enjoy it responsibly, and go Hawks. And we'll talk to you after the game.